And I'm going to start off by talking about before the match. I know that if I'm going into an important squash match, I need to prepare properly. I give myself good time to get prepared mentally, and I feel it's exactly the same when you're refereeing a tough match. I think it's a huge mistake to come rushing into the gallery at the last minute. I've seen national referees who actually keep the players waiting because the referee's not ready to go, and I think that's discourteous to the players. The game is for the players, and we're there just to try and keep the control of the match, but I've always felt a good referee shouldn't even be noticed. So I would ask you to please get in the gallery to make sure I'd like to be there for the whole warm-up. Especially if I've got players on court that I don't really know. You've got 5 minutes with each team to really get to know who they are, because there's nothing worse than getting tied up because you don't know the players. So I would ask all of you, when you've got a tough match, to get in the gallery early, have a spare ball with you, have a spare pencil, and just be prepared, because I think that'll help you to make better decisions rather than coming flying in the last minute. Make sure the line judges are ready to go, and I would do that at the start of every game. It's all very well to have your line judges set up, then one of them disappears for a beer, and you start the next game and they're not even in the gallery. So it's very important before you start the next game that your line judges are ready to go. Finding line judges is not easy, depending on who the match is, but basically the referee is usually there not only to control the match, but to make sure you've got decent line judges, because it can help you enormously. I have always felt that the best refereeing system in the world is the 3-judge system, because with backup, the referee themselves are going to do a better job. You're more relaxed, and the confrontation with players one-on-one. And in fact, we introduced the system to softball when we had the World Championships, the Women's World Championships in Canada, and the guys used to come. I remember talking to Chris Dittmar one year when we introduced the 3-judge system, and it eliminated all the discussion and the confrontation between the player and the referee. And I talked to him because he was #1 at the time, and he didn't like it because he said he couldn't bait the referee. And that's what they do. They bait the referee so they get him on board for later on in the match. The press didn't like it because they didn't have the confrontations to write about in the paper. But it worked, and you got better results. And so I certainly, if it's a really tough match, like to have line judges that are confident in to help back me up. I'm going to do a better job, I know. Correct calls. The reason I think this is so important is because I think as a player, if the referee is making the correct calls, I have confidence in the referee straight away. And I have to say there's a lot of incorrect calls made. Starting with the introduction, it's amazing how many referees actually forget to announce it's best of 5 games. So you're there all night. So it's A and B playing C and D, best of 5 games, A serving, love all, play. On they go. At the end of the first game, for the benefit of any spectators who come in late, I think you should announce who won the first game. Second game, love all, play. The play is an indication for the players to get on with it, and you're ready to go. Game ball, match ball. They're now recognized calls, and I always call it the first time. I don't keep repeating game ball. And the same with match ball. It's the first time, and then I don't keep repeating it. It's either game ball or match ball. I don't think you need to say game ball and match ball. The only other thing I would say about calling the score, I find it very frustrating when the referee, if you don't have someone actually scoring for you, is to screw up the score. I mean, that's basic. If you're writing the score down correctly, I really think that there should be very, very few mistakes on calling the score. But when you have a referee who is continually making or screwing up on the score, it's very, very frustrating. And if that's because you don't feel confident about writing the way you're writing the score down, then practice it. Because it should become second nature, and I don't feel that there's really much excuse for getting a score wrong on an ongoing basis. The calling of the score is important in terms of timing. I like to call it as the serve is coming into the box, so there's a flow. It's again very frustrating for a player being held up because the call of the score hasn't been made. They're ready to go. You should be able to time it so there's a flow to the game, there's no interruption.
I've heard two different ways of certain refs. I prefer to call which side they're on every time, like 2-1 left, and so on and so forth, and right every time. I've heard others just yell out the score. What's your?
I tend to do left and right as well, because I think but if you don't, it's not a big issue, I don't think, provided if a player looks at you, you can immediately just direct them either left or right. It should be just a look of the eye, and you can get them to the right side. So there's no side.
Or if they go to the wrong side,
then you call them to the right side.
If you're standing in the box, it's not much call.
No. I mean, I think the general rule is that you make as few calls as possible. Okay, so the rules changes that were made in 2004, and I know that everyone doesn't know this because there was a line judge on Saturday in the playoff finals who said that there is no appeal on footballs. Yeah, totally wrong.
The Sippers, he said that.
No.
Well, he usually is. So.
Yes, I know. So the service is a fault if the service strikes out but misses the ball. That was a change in 2004. A server may now appeal the call of foot fault. The interval between all games is 2 minutes, John.
Thank you.
Because he saw 5 minutes between fourth and fifth. Game ball and match ball are now recognised calls. So those were very minor changes that were made. And I should probably just explain that the way the rules changes are approved is that a motion has to be put to the international body, the World Squash Federation, for approval by the annual general meeting, and we do it every 4 years. So leading up to the rules for 2010 was that the penalty points will no longer be deducted from the score. We discussed that because I haven't been playing doubles as long as some of you guys have, but in the 10 years I've been playing, I have never ever seen it applied. Plus, the fact we now have a code of conduct which allows you to either give a warning, or award a point, or a game, or a match. So we are covered that instead of deducting points, you actually award points. So that was the first thing. Foot fault is clarified, and you can thank Don Mills over there from the US for this, because we had a good argument as to what actually constitutes a foot fault.
I found that
But the reason for that was because most players, when they serve, they might start off with the entire foot touching the floor, but when they come in the movement, the heel comes off the ground.
Yeah.
Now the heel can be over a line, not touching it, it's fine. Yeah. It's the part of the foot that is touching the floor that has to be within the service.
So if the whole foot is touching the floor, it can't be touching the floor.
But if your whole foot is touching, it can't be touching the line.
Right.
That's right. I mean, we know what's intended.
Right.
It's not, it doesn't say that.
All right, we will.
And intent.
Left points are now being replaced by points. So there's no reference to left points, or there shouldn't be. There might be some typos still. I noticed one in the explanations where
guidelines, there's lots of strokes.
I know, we've got to tighten that. Players trying to get out of an unfavorable position are now required to play the ball safely. That sort of ties into the turning rule. The specs.
Excuse me, Tony, on that one. Players trying to get out of an unfavorable position are now required to play the ball safely. When they get into an unfavorable position and call on that, how are you supposed to interpret that? They say they're going to play it. Where the player is.
Well, you have to see what you see, and the question is, could they play the ball? That's the starting point.
Okay.
Okay.
Good evening. So I guess this is, Tony's covered most of these points already, but he asked me to come from a player's perspective, what makes a good referee. So I think there's 3 key points. 2 of the points are something that you gain the confidence of the players quickly. If you keep focus on the game, So you're not chatting to your friend. I was at Jessica's doubles tournament this year. She has a junior doubles tournament, and the young fellow was. This is like an extreme case of non-focus. He was actually pulling him off quite well. He was texting, he was doing his iPod and rapping all at the same time. Multitasking. He was doing a good job of it, but probably an extreme case of how not to impress the players. Second point is scoring. Tony talked about it, that easy way to lose confidence is messing the score up. So practice marking the score and getting it right. Get into the rhythm of when to call it. You don't want to make the players wait. So you want to, as they're getting to the box, you don't want to have them have to look up and prompt you to play. You don't. If you make a mistake, once is fine, but if you make it continually, it's disruptive to the players. The third thing is not as easy as making the call. So obviously there's interpretation as we've got into the discussion about turning and strokes. There's lots of interpretation. The one guidance I would give is make sure you're consistent, make sure you make it, you're not tentative, you make it quickly, and have good lines judge. Any questions? And the most important thing is be transparent. A good referee at the end of the day is transparent.
I think the other major thing that referees do way too often is break the rhythm of the play of the match. And so if they're, first of all, I think you have to judge how all the players are. Do they call their balls up and down? What are they doing? What ends up happening is the referee starts calling too many balls down, up, or down, and then they keep going to appeals and they get overruled. You're breaking the rhythm of the game when you're doing that, and all you're doing is pissing the players off. If a ball's close, that's why you have 2 appeal judges. If it's that close, let it go to appeal. If you don't think if you're not sure of it, let it keep going. That's why you got 2 appeal judges. But if you call it down and then everybody's like, no, I got that, and then it's like, and they go to the appeal judges and both appeal judges go left, you're just pissing everybody off because it's a great rally and then boom. And sometimes what ends up happening is, and this is the worst part, is you call the ball down and they're already in a winning situation and then you've just taken away from them. And that's the worst thing you can do as a referee, in my opinion, for the players, is when you call a ball down and the ball isn't down and they've gotten the situation to have a winning shot and now you've just given them, and that's where you should step in and go, Mike, all appeals through me first. Do not let the players start going and looking at the line judges. And always go to the line judge that had the best view of it. But stop breaking the rhythm. A lot of the times, referees that try and get too much into the play of the game, you're there to keep organization, but do not start sticking your face too much into the match. You're part of it, but don't interrupt what's going on in the court.
As Al said, the referee should be transparent. So,
Exactly.
As a writer to that, a referee should not try to impose himself on the match.
At one point,